Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Dyon here from Beadly Speaking Jewelry. I am so excited for our guest today, y'all. Kim and I go way, way back to the day I was diagnosed. It's ironic because she was the first person who, outside of my family, who I told about my lupus diagnosis, and I didn't even know her yet. So we will get into all of that in a few minutes about how we met and who introduced us and how all that went down. Welcome, Kim.
Hey, glad to be here. Finally, right?
I know, finally.
Been working on this for a minute.
Yeah, it's been a long road, but her schedule and I'm sorry, it's doctor. She's a doctor now, y'all. She's been working hard, so she's been busy doing some great things. So thank you for joining us.
Of course, happy to be here.
Child, tell us what you've been going through, what's been going on, what they diagnosed you with, and all that good stuff.
So I got my first diagnoses in probably 2002 or 3. I was diagnosed with unspecified connective tissue disorder.
Okay.
The whole thing actually started out super weird. Since high school, I had like these skin issues, like blemishes and peeling around my nose and peeling around my scalp, and I was going to a dermatologist, old guy, and taking all these topical creams, and he ended up retiring. And when he retired, they put me with a new doctor, happened to be a black woman. So when I first came in, she looked at my face and looked at my chart, and first thing she said to me was, "Have you ever been checked for lupus?" And I looked at her like,
"Wow,
what is that? Like, what are you talking about, right?" I'm like, "I just have skin issues," and she's like, "No, we should probably, do some tests." And
right.
That sort of started the journey.
Off the top, she just looked at you and like, this looks familiar.
Because she's a black woman, female dermatologist. Lupus is prominent in African American women. She knew that mallow rash right off the bat.
Wow.
She knew the rash around my nose is called mallow rash, and she knew that right off the bat. But that's what that was.
That's amazing. So. Because I remember, it's so crazy. We met on October 18th, 2013. I remember that night because that's the day I was diagnosed. And it's so crazy because at the time I was doing a breast cancer awareness event, and your son's father and I went to high school, so he introduced me to you, and you were dropping off some items for the live auction for the event that I was doing. When you came, I was limping. He was like, "Well, why are you limping? What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "I'm in so much pain. My feet are still swollen. Everything hurts." And on top of it, today I just found out that I was diagnosed with lupus. And he was like, "Oh, you'll be fine." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah, that's when I had been 10 years in.
Right.
So I was just like...
She was like a champ, like, "Girl, you'll be all right. They're going to give you medicine. You're going to be good." And I was looking at you like, I was in tears, like, "What do you mean?" And you hugged me. You were like, "It's going to be okay. The medicine is going to be 10 times worse before it gets better." And lo and behold, if you were that correct... I mean, the night sweats and the fevers, you were not lying. It multiplied by like 1,000. So
it got better, right?
Yeah, it got better.
As long as I didn't lie to you there, it got better.
Listen, it was like 5 months of hell, and then it got a little bit better, and I was like, dang, she was right. And I remember you telling me to take like really warm showers and then a cold. I was like, I ain't about the cold shower life, no ma'am. I still haven't been able to do it. But those little tips that you gave me that first night I met you were so helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's sharing. This is why I do this on the channel, because so many things that people who've been living with any of the autoimmune diseases know from their experience, their journey. People don't share it.
Yeah.
So for you to open up right away, that was huge.
It was rough. It was rough because when you live with a condition that people can't identify with, like, I'm currently being treated as a lupus patient because I have all but one of the markers that you need to be classified as a lupus patient.
Wow.
So all of my drugs, my rheumatology, all that is as if I were a lupus patient. And it's hard because when you live with something that other people can't identify with, trying to get them to understand where you're coming from, right? I used to have friends or family always say things to me like, "You're always sick.
Right.
Something's always wrong with you. Why is it something? Why are you always complaining about this and that?" And it got to the point where I started to be like, okay, well, I won't say anything. I'll just live in silence. And that got hard because You know, you want to be able to tell people that you don't feel well, or you want to be able to explain why you can't come to their, you know, graduation party or their cookout or their, you know, you just don't feel like it.
Did you start to feel guilty at some point?
Yeah. I started to feel guilty. I started to feel resentful. I felt like my friends and my family just didn't understand, and they thought I was making this stuff up, and they thought, you know, I was a hypochondriac. That was thrown out a couple times. You know, and it wasn't until I started getting symptoms that people could see. You know, when recently I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which I'm not totally sure that that's the true diagnosis, and I'm gonna get a second opinion there. But my legs will just decide to stop working. Like I'll be sitting here in this chair, and then when it's time to get up, I can't, because my legs, it's like numb. So it's like a nerve block. Jeez. It just go numb. And when people started to see that kind of stuff, then it was like, oh, she's not making this stuff.
Right.
She really battling some stuff here. But yeah, there were a host of emotions going through this, anger and frustration, and it was always something like, this not enough, God. Like, it's not enough for me to be in pain every single day, but now you want to give me, you know, lung disease, and now you want to give me fibro, and now you want to give me...
Let's talk about the lung stuff, because I don't think we ever talked about that.
So,
we only talked about fatigue and all the other pain stuff before.
So lupus can affect any type of, as I'm sure you know, it can affect any system, right? Any of your systems. And for me, it was always just my dermal system. It was always just my skin mostly. But about 2008, so I pledged in 2007. So yeah, 2008, did a CT scan of my lungs, and you know, there's a whole bunch of other things as a part of the testing that I had to do, and they saw a shadow. And so of course that freaked them out. They're like, okay, we need to go look at the shadow and see what this is. And you know, we did all these scans. They're like, we need to go in and figure out what this mass is, because they could see this mass and couldn't figure out what it was. So of course I'm thinking I have cancer, right?
Right.
Anytime you hear a shadow, like cancer. Oh, like that's the first thing.
That's what I thought when they said it was a mass on my right lung. I was like, oh no.
No, and so they did we started off with a bronchoscopy, which they didn't get what they needed to get from it, and instead punctured my lung and put me in the hospital for 3 or 4 days. And so then they said, after all that, we didn't get what we need. We got to actually go in and do an open lung biopsy. So 2 lung surgeries later, they found out that I had what's called cryptogenic organizing pneumonia, which is basically it's titled as either COP, not COPD, not to be confused, 2 different diseases, or BOOP. I forget what the BOOP stands for, but cryptogenic organizing pneumonia is basically when your lungs present as if you have pneumonia. The increased inflammation presents like pneumonia, so then your immune system begins to attack the pneumonia that you don't have, and so it causes your immune system to shut down because it's fighting something that's not there in real life. So that so that had to be controlled with our favorite prednisone, right?
Yeah.
Which caused me about 60 to 70 pound weight gain over the course of about a year and a half.
Jesus.
Got the lung disease under control.
But that's what I was gonna say, because it helped the pain, it helped the lung disease.
But then I had almost 100 pounds I had to try to get off.
Right.
So yeah, that was in 2008, 2009, and then the Lord blessed me with my pregnancy in 2010, and that was rough. It was so rough, in fact, that I don't want to do pregnancy again. I'm okay with just
that one. Yeah. And he is so handsome. He's just so amazing.
He's good.
He's good.
He has plenty of cousins. You know, he has plenty of cousins to play with. He don't need no siblings.
He got the whole neighborhood. He's good.
He's good. So.
Wow. So when you were going through your pregnancy, I'm so fascinated with people who were actually diagnosed before and wind up getting pregnant, because I don't have any kids yet, and I do desire kids. I'm like, God, please don't let it be my faith where I just don't have no kids, because that's my dream, motherhood. What was that experience like, especially during your first trimester?
My first trimester, I literally could not swing my legs out of the bed unless I had food first. So I had like crackers in my nightstand drawer, and I'd have to sit up, get my crackers, eat a couple crackers, wait for a few seconds. And because if I swung my legs out of the bed, even to go to the bathroom, I was vomiting all day. It was just constant.
So you had to have food on your stomach.
So I had to have something in my stomach first before I could even make any moves. And that was really, really hard. And so from week 1 to 12, that was my well, not one, but from the final time I found out to 12 weeks out, that was my life. And then week 13, it just cut off. It was like beginning of second trimester, I was like, no more nausea. what the heck is that about?
Well, bless God.
And then second trimester was a breeze. I mean, it was in the summertime. It was, I had my long flowy dresses, my leggings, my flip flops. And I was huge.
Yes.
They kept thinking that Noodle was going to be a 10, 11 pound baby because I was huge in my second trimester.
Wow.
But third trimester was when the lupus really got bad because I transitioned into the winter months, and the colder months are always harder for us. And I just would have flare after flare after flare, and you can't lay on your back, can't lay on your stomach, so you only have your sides. Your hip joints are the first things that flare. It was a miserable last trimester. I mean, it was just miserable. The only thing that I enjoyed about it was actually watching my stomach just get bigger and bigger. But
watching him grow.
Yeah, but it was really, really hard. So I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore.
I mean, I can see why you say that.
I don't want any more kids. I don't want to go through the pregnancy part.
I know what flare is like anyway, so I'm just imagining that and being pregnant. That got it. Wow.
Yeah, it was rough.
So after going through all of that, lung and pregnancy and having that experience, and because you've been living with it for so long, like, what was your support system like throughout all of this? Because I know you said sometimes they were not understanding what was going on, but even now, what's your support like?
Interesting. My son's father and I, he's so easygoing, right? Like anybody who knows him knows he's super easygoing, and so he kind of helped me be sane when I was going through a lot of this. He kind of kept me sane. My mom, she doesn't do hospitals, and so she doesn't do doctors, and so every time something would come up, she just like, oh, here we go again, And she was really, really frustrated. She's gotten a lot better over the years, but she just doesn't do sick leave well. At least not initially. A lot of it I hid from my siblings. I didn't get into detail with my siblings. In fact, my sister's birthday, the year that I got diagnosed with fibro, for my sister's birthday, we took her to dinner, and I had that what they call a fibro flare at dinner. And so when it was time to go home, I couldn't move my legs. And so when I got to the house, they had to kind of carry me into the house. My dad, my mom, and they all kind of helped me in. And so and my son was with us, and so he went upstairs and said, go upstairs and get mommy. Something I asked him to get for me. He went upstairs. I was like, all right, guys, go ahead. I'll lock the door. And it's like, my sister said, how do you get upstairs? I was like, I'll crawl. And she just broke down crying. I mean, tears. And I was like, no, she's like, I can't believe you've been doing this all this time, and I didn't know. And
reality
hit. So they've been really good. She always calling me. What did the doctor say? Keeping me on my toes. And I'm like, girl, it's been 15, 16, 17 years at this point. I'm good.
But, I always say sometimes you don't know how strong you are until you absolutely have to be. Because I had a conversation with my mom over the summer. I was like, you always telling me how weak I am and that I can't handle anything. Do you even know what it's like to live with this? Yeah. You wake up some days and my feet are numb, and I got to get up and go to work. Like, my alarm clock goes off, and it's like, oh, I got to get in the shower. I got to get dressed. Who cares about your numb feet? You got to get dressed and get out of here and get on that highway and go to work. And I'm like, you don't even understand what I had to go through even in the beginning stages, and even still now when I'm overwhelmed with fatigue, where like my legs feel like jello. I'm like, I feel like they're giving out, but I still have to go to work. I don't have the luxury of calling out, and I do that. And when I explained to her some of the stuff I had to go through, then she apologized and was like, I didn't know. So sometimes our family mean well, they just don't know.
Yeah. I think the turning point for me after I had Noodle was accepting the fact that people will never understand.
Wow.
And that allowed me to not be resentful. That allowed me to not be angry and to not be, to not have these super high expectations, because I had to realize that they'll never understand. It's kind of like, not the same, but it's kind of like, how you hear of millionaires who commit suicide.
Yeah.
And we think, folks who don't have a whole lot of money.
Like, you got money, what's wrong with you?
Money would just make would make all our problems go away, and it would be so much better. How could you not be happy with all the money in the world, right? But these folks are not happy. We can never understand that because we've never been a millionaire. We've never had that kind of money to be able to experience the kinds of problems that come with being a millionaire.
That's true.
Same rules apply. You'll never understand what it's like to wake up, 355 out of 365 days in pain every single day.
And I feel like sometimes when I talk about what I'm experiencing, somebody said, "How you doing?" and I actually tell them how I'm doing, it's like, "Oh, stop complaining."
Yeah.
So I'm like, when I tell you I'm fine, then
Right.
you say, "Oh, are you really fine?"
Yeah.
I'm like, then stop asking me. I'm like, I don't know what answer you're expecting. If I tell you I'm fine, and then you question, "Are you really fine?" When I tell you what's really going on, I'm complaining. So my answer these days is I'm fine. Even when I'm not, I'm fine.
It's good. Cool. I'm cool.
It's always that. So I think we've learned to cope with whatever comes and just roll with the punches.
It's interesting you mentioned coping, because one of the things that I've had to also consider that I think a lot of people don't think about is the fact that I have a young child, and I am the custodial parent, so he's with me most of the time, and it's just he and I in the house. He and I and 2 cats. So I had to actually teach him, like 3 or 4 years old, he learned my phone number. And I had to teach him how to use my phone to call 911 in the event mommy doesn't wake up. Because there is a reality that this disease could destroy some system.
Yeah.
And he comes wake me up in the morning and I don't move. And so we actually have drills, even now, where he has a phone number list on his bedroom wall of the numbers to call in order, starting with 911. He gets my phone, he unlocks it, and then we'll call like my mom, and we'll just kind of text. She always freaks out when she gets a call from Doodle. But 7 years old, I have to teach him that, because I have to also be conscious. He did this morning, walked up to me, says, "Mommy, are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm awake." As soon as I hear his voice, I have to jump up, because if I don't, he'll go right into panic. Plan B. Time to do.
She's not up.
Phone calls.
I gotta go to the next thing, and that's so important. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because a lot of times people don't take the time out to educate their kids on what's going on with them. They just so busy protecting that child, but in order to help them, you gotta explain what's going on, and that's so important. Educating your kids on what's going on with you will actually save your life too. So I'm glad that you're doing that. That's so important. I don't have anybody in my house, so I'm like always telling my girlfriends, like, stop not answering your phone. You never know when I will need you for something. My mom is the only person out of everybody I know who answers their phone. I'm like, that's ridiculous. And she doesn't drive, so if something goes down, I'm SOL.
I have a group of friends that I talk to every single day. We talk on Glide every single day, and I always tell them, if y'all haven't heard from me in a couple days, come check. Come check on me. Like, call me, have sent somebody to the house, come check. Because that's not like me. You're not hear from me for days at a time. That's not like me. Even if it's just to pop in and say, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And so have a backup plan. Have somebody that you talk to just about every day.
Yeah, I have one girlfriend who's a social worker. It's so funny because she goes straight in therapist mode. If she doesn't hear from me, she calls me every night on her way home. So it's like, if I don't answer, she's like, "Oh, maybe she's asleep," and she'll give me a few minutes to call right back. If I'm doing something, like maybe she's in the shower. She makes up scenarios, and sometimes I am in the shower, but she checks on me every night. But I also try to explain to some of my friends, like, don't always expect Facebook to be my point of contact to say, well, she posted today on Facebook, so she's fine. Sometimes I posted from the hospital bed. I don't always say I'm in a hospital and post tubes and
hospital bracelet.
People do that, but I'm not the one. So I think sometimes we have our friends and we have our associates, but my immediate circle, they check. But when sometimes I call them, like, don't never not answer your phone, because I don't really call like that. I mainly text, but if I call, it's important. So it's good to have that type of support. And so, since you've been living with the disease longer than I have, and you've helped me so much, what are some tips that you can help someone that's probably waiting for a diagnosis, or probably just received the news and they're like me on day one, when they told me Plaquenil could cause blindness, and I remember sitting in your car like, I ain't taking it because I ain't trying to be blind, and freaking out.
I've been Plaquenil now almost 20 years. I'm not blind. I can see just fine. Well, I have had some moments.
5 years later, I'm still good. I can see.
I have had some moments where my vision blurs, so it does happen. So that is something that you need to be aware of, because as you are on it for an extended amount of time, I have these moments where, like, several days, my vision will just blur completely, and I'll need like readers to be able to see. That's just started happening within the last couple of years.
Oh, well, I wear glasses, and they check every 6 months. They check twice a year.
Yep. I think the biggest piece of advice I'd have is to be your own health advocate. Don't just assume, oh, it's a headache, it's nothing, or oh, it's just hip pain, I've been standing on my feet all day, or oh, you know, my eyes are just burning because they're dry, or oh, like I used to have so many completely unrelated symptoms, and they never made sense, and I always went to the doctor because I was like, something is not right. And at one point they were calling me like a live house patient because nobody could figure out I had the positive ANA, so they knew something was going on. They knew there was some kind of process going on, but they couldn't pinpoint it, which is why it's still unspecified connective tissue, because they still can't figure out what it is. But you have to be your own health advocate. If something doesn't sound right, don't take it for face value. Like there's been times where they've tried to give me certain medications, and I'm like, yeah, I've read about some of these medications. I'm not interested. You got to give me something different. We got to do something else. And you have to be okay with pushing back. You know, the doctors are practicing, right? It's called a practice for a reason. They're practicing. And so if it doesn't sound right to you, don't do it. If you don't feel right, go to the doctor. Like, don't assume it's just this or it's just that, because you just never know what those things can spiral into. That's my first really big piece of advice. For those who have lupus, you know, you've learned some of the coping mechanisms. You know, cold weather, try to avoid it. You know, if you're going to be out in cold weather, wrap up. You know, keep those joints covered, and because any small bit of inflammation spirals a flare, which is what I've learned. So whenever I have any type of inflammation, if I hurt myself, like if I've twisted my ankle and that inflammation starts, I'm in full, you know, inflammation control mode, because I don't want it to turn into a flare somewhere else. If I'm stressing about something, like I don't do well at funerals, so whenever there's a funeral that's coming up and I know I'm going to be, you know, high stress, I got my medications ready. Or something's going on at work, you know, I've just kind of learned to deal. And I've also learned to be open about what's going on.
Good point. I
have coworkers, you know, I'll come into work and I'm limping, and I'm like, oh, what's wrong? And some people will try to hide that, like, oh, nothing, it's fine. My whole job knows what's going on with me.
That's good.
So, you know, when I'm in there limping, I don't have to have people say to me, oh, what's going on with you? What, did you hurt yourself? They kind of assume, oh, she's just not doing well today. It's just not a good day for her.
Right.
And they give you a little bit of leeway too. They kind of, she's having a rough day, I'm gonna leave her alone.
They work with you.
And that works with me.
That's good.
Sometimes I really go in like, I do not feel like being bothered today, Lord. And folks will just kind of leave me be. So
that's good.
But yeah, those are really being your own advocate, and accepting that this is what you have, this is what it is, and there's no need to hide it. There's no need to feel bad about it. There's no need to beat yourself up about it. There's no need to question God about it. Like, just.
And I think that's one of the biggest parts that a lot of people haven't quite accepted, that this is what it is, but they try to hide the disease or make it so much that they can't deal with it. And I know for me, I had to go to therapy to grieve. I literally had to grieve the fact that my old way of life is exactly what it is. Yeah. And I had to cope with the new stuff that was going on. Because had I not done that in the beginning, so I was diagnosed in 2013, by 2014 I was in therapy for that, because I couldn't accept what was going on. Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a very big deal. You really have to accept what's there. I was in denial because my whole family was like, you need to get a second opinion, this, that, and the other, and it was overwhelming.
Nobody in our family has that.
Right,
where
right.
Where they come from, and you don't, you know.
I'm like, I don't have all the answers.
This is what I have. This is what it is. And I often wonder how, you know, when people are diagnosed with cancer, like how they just go into survival mode so quickly. Right. When you have a disease that you know could be terminal, right? You have to go through all these different treatments, and you know, how do you just fight? And then I think back, you know, people ask me all the time, how did you do all the things that you're able to do with all that you have going on?
And that's important.
And it's like, oh, I guess I went into survival mode too.
And we just go immediately into it because we just have to. So, well, we're going to wrap it up here. We want to say thank you, Kim, for sharing your story. We're so glad that you were able to join us and be just so open with us. I mean, that's really valuable information that you shared, and I hope everyone will subscribe to our channel and share this video with everybody could benefit.
Subscribe.
Hit that subscribe button. Share with everybody that you know. Everyone is not as stable and solid and have that support system. So the reason why we created this channel is so you can feel supported, because you're not alone. As you hear her story, immediately she was a support to me, and I didn't even know her yet. I just met her. So you think about other people out there that could be that support for you. Thank you so much for tuning in every week. We want to make sure that we are delivering good information to you. If you would like to join us, feel free. Just go to our Gmail account, beadlyspeaking@gmail.com, and shoot us a line. We're right here in Baltimore. Unfortunately, we're not able to come to other cities yet, but in the future, we probably will. We'll take the show on the road. So just lift us up in prayer. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon. Bye.